So we've got a couple of things on our agenda. One is to review the RFP. Another is to review the proposed budget that we're supposed to recommend anything from land use subcommittee to go before the select board on Monday, and the full and prepare to discuss it with the full committee when we meet. Pretty much think that's it. There might have been a third item, but I've got my other device open to the budget stuff. So let's start with just walking through the RFP. So we had it in fairly decent shape, and then there were some timely suggestions from our colleagues at the state in terms of building up the marketing study and some other dates and references to how we might address some of the appendices.
Peter, before we jump in, could we get an update? Has this gone to procurement already, or is it?
That's my understanding, Linda.
Okay.
That's what Megan reported last Friday.
Okay, great.
Good. Welcome, Scott. You're muted and off screen.
So we don't even know if you're really there. Peter, by the way, I think the other items we're going to talk about maybe is information session and the tour.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So, so again, 3 items we want to run through. Finalize the RFP to the extent that we can as the land use subcommittee with our recommendations on Monday. Talk a little bit about the tour of the site and our meetings with the consultants and prepare for that. And the third is our review of the proposed budget for discussion on Monday and any contributions to that the land use subcommittee might have. So I'd like to start with the RFP. So again, there were a couple of things. Paul had suggested beefing up the marketing study and put language forward. And I think a number of us had a chance to look at that.
It would be helpful if I shared some of the couple of sentences that Paul offered in the meeting.
Yeah, if you've got that on markup, that would be great.
Okay. Well, so apparently at some point in his life, he spent some time in an organization that specialized in doing those sort of deep dives into economic impact analysis. So, and he had written several RFPs incorporating language. So I was pretty psyched to hear that, and I was very comfortable with what he had added. But if people want to understand the backdrop for that, I wanted to at least share that. So that's where that came from.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at it and I was comfortable with it. Did anybody have any thoughts? First off, did everybody get a look at it? Okay. All right. And then there were some suggestions about dropping some of the things in the appendices that we don't actually have in our hands at this moment. And just to use the consultant information process to let people know that those studies will be coming forward at some point in time. But, you know, that way everybody's sort of, no one's going to be calling us up and saying, where's that study on XYZ? I couldn't find it anywhere. Well, it hasn't been done yet. So I think that was sort of his approach on that. I didn't really have too much of a problem with that. Did other people take a look at that and have any comments? So I think those were the sort of two major issues that sort of surfaced from the state's last minute review of the RFP. Was there anything else that you recall, Dan?
No, those are the big items from my perspective. So cleaning, some just minor housekeeping, cleanup stuff, and the other ones you mentioned.
Shannon, do you recall anything, or Elizabeth, do you recall anything in addition to that?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, then in that case, I'd be willing to take a recommendation to move the RFP forward and get it out the door with the changes suggested by DCAM.
So moved.
Does this now have to go back to procurement, or what's the time? I didn't hear the timetable here.
So it's already with procurement right now with those changes. I sent the changes out to you all and I asked you to reply to me directly if you had any major qualms with them, and I didn't hear back from any of you, so I just sent it to procurement with those changes accepted last week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we're voting to formally accept those changes. Got a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Right. Does
All right.
does Peter have to do a roll call, or is that Shannon, or is it?
I can do a roll call.
We all acknowledge that it was done.
All right. Okay. All right. I get 3 votes, me, myself, and I. Wait, everybody gets 3, so it's 12-0. All right, that's great. Okay, let's think about the budget.
Peter,
Can
before
someone share the proposed budget for the MCI planning for especially the October drop down? Yeah, that's great. So
Is this big enough?
yeah, I think that's like a number of lawyers taking a long walk off a short pier. We call that a good start. So I was surprised at the amount under the wastewater treatment plan analysis. I thought that was coming from ARPA or some other source. But that's just me.
No, I have the
Peter,
same.
No, I thought it was coming just out of the originally out of the enterprise fund.
Oh, okay.
And if it doesn't need to come out of the enterprise fund.
I think we had a concern that we wanted to make sure that the 750 covered whatever the consultants actually proposed. I think this might be better to fine tune it after, after we get responses from the RFP, then we can come back in and say, well, instead of the the consultant came in at 450, we're going to reduce the wastewater treatment, down to 100. We're going to change this and change that to make everything balanced from the 750 we've got and make sure we spend it this year. I just want to make sure we, have enough money to expend on the RFP project.
Well, I have a question. Is this proposed budget then will go to the full committee? And
On
then,
Monday.
on Monday, then it will go to the select board.
Monday evening.
And once the select board approves it, does that mean we're then committed to a certain
I
amount?
think
Because
that's,
No, I have had that conversation. This is this effort, and I'm not suggesting these numbers, but this pass at the budget is our best guess with the information that we have at this point.
Dan,
Um,
you saw my comments about, I mean, I'm just doing the math right now for 5 months of a consultant team, and it's coming up to close to $500,000 based on $150 a rate. And I think we're way low on the consultant for planning.
I agree with your comment on, not necessarily with that number, but I think that number, personally, I think that number should at least be doubled. 150 should go to 300 because things happen. And I could, to your point, doing the math, if it's 5 months or 4 months, 4 or 5 months.
You do 5 months at $150 an hour for an average rate, and you have a team of probably 5 to 10 people working on it, like probably an average of 5 people working on it for a week for 5 months, it comes out to close to $500,000.
Yeah, I don't think, Scott, that well, I mean, it's hard to predict that right now, but I can tell you from Peter and my conversation with another firm, it didn't have a team of 5 people working on it. It had a principal, and then it had support people, that would come in and out of it.
This is I agree, but there's a full spectrum of services here that 2 people can't do.
Understood.
You're going to have sub-consultants on these teams, not just the main consultant. It's not going to be just 2 people working on this. It's going to be a team of different people with different rates and all that. So I just thought, even 300 I think is light, but I think you have to be closer to 400 for something like this. That's my personal opinion.
So let's think about this. If we're releasing we're about 2 weeks behind where we had hoped to be. So that means that theoretically, if I remember correctly, we'd probably be engaging this consultant in middle to end of February. And so let's say best case scenario, they start work on March 1st, which is probably not realistic, but if they did, it's March, April, May, June. That's 4 months.
Okay.
And right. And so if you could say that it was going to be $75,000, for example, or $100,000 a month, 100,000 seems a lot to me, but 75, that's light. So in any event, that's $300,000 to $400,000.
Right. I don't know if the person understood. Maybe they did. You explained it, but when you asked them to do the market research and being part of the community involvement, going to a meeting, going to like women league voters or any kind of other town meetings, they're going to charge their hourly rates at those at every kind of open meeting they go to. It's going to be very time consuming. And on top of all the analysis and market research and planning and visioning and presentations and all the marketing materials and interviews, I mean, 150 seems really low, but I'm hoping if you can get up to 300, that's great.
I mean, if you think about it also that this line item is this, because what's not listed on her sheet, because it probably wasn't understood at that point, is it also includes the community outreach. And those 2 tasks combined are basically the most important thing that we're doing.
Where's the community outreach on this?
Is it under engagement and storytelling? Is that where that is?
No, it's baked into this is I believe that this is Megan's October description of the work. And we all know that our RFP incorporates the community outreach piece
Oh, so
as written.
the 80,000 goes with the 150 for this consultant?
No.
Okay.
The $150,000 and the sort of initial WAG estimate that we got from the consultant included the community outreach piece.
Wow.
Our RFP also includes the community. I think this is just simply and Shannon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or we can double check with Megan. I think this is simply either the amount of space that was available or it was an oversight. But this line item, as I understand it, is for the what is currently contemplated in the RFP as written.
So
I just think it's really light. I'm just really nervous and I mean, that's just my personal opinion, seeing, I don't know did you go through the entire RFP with the consultant you talked to?
Yep.
Okay.
But I did not show them, Scott. I just read the headings and a little bit of the descriptors.
Okay. All right.
So, I'm gonna apologize and Shannon can, correct me if I'm wrong. So the 150 for consulting for planning, economic and market analysis
And
is
communication.
what is, it includes community engagement needed for the planning, which is the visioning process.
That is
This-
correct.
This other short term was something that oh, we're back to Unipay, Shannon. Is something that the economic vitality manager commented on during the public engagement. During the public forum, people had talked about, short-term community engagement activities, such as, I don't like a temporary kind of mural on the wall, or other ways to beautify the site, or other just short-term community things, nothing to do with the visioning or plan or zoning piece.
That's my understanding.
Scroll down, if you can go up on the thing, I thought there was, keep going, because I thought there was stuff for that. No, not,
No, it
No,
is,
this is
if you look at the description,
okay.
So
she's talking about removal of wire and murals, which, I mean, in terms of proportion, that's half as much as we're spending for the entire planning and visioning and outreach. So,
And removing the wire is Department of Corrections. We're not going to touch that. It's
So,
not from a
I think-
liability perspective.
I wonder why we have that in there. Other
I
than
think
know
what I understood, Linda, was that this is, there was a beautification part as Elizabeth is explaining it. And then there's also this idea of storytelling, which is capturing the history of the property and sort of creating a narrative around that. Now, I'm not suggesting that necessarily belongs in here, but that's part of what I heard about the description.
So in my conversations with Anne, that whole process of capturing the story is not a short-term engagement. That's a project unto itself.
Yeah,
So-
if you wanted to put under, 10 historical research, $80,000, for archival work and storytelling, and that would make more sense to me than putting in this short-term engagement that is half of what we're putting in, for our full budget for the entire consulting effort. So I think the proportions are kind of out of whack for short-term.
So our
Activities.
opportunity to,
I don't know what
to-
what we're supposed to be doing here.
I have
reviewing.
an answer. I have an answer
Okay.
for that.
Thank you.
Yep. I think what we want to do is to focus on the things that we want to have budget control over. And obviously, the first line item up there is our biggest concern. The other items I can explain because I've had some conversations with Megan and Alan and others. But it's only their explanation to me parroting it to you. So I think my suggestion would be we get comfortable, and whether it's Scott's 400 or my 300 or somewhere in the middle, I think that's the number we put in it. And then, and then we let the other people that are responsible for author or suggesting those, let them react to that. What is now a, the 725 less whatever number we arrive at.
I'm okay with going for 300. I just don't want it to be 150, that's all.
I agree with that.
Linda, do you have a opinion on it?
Oh, I definitely would agree that the lion's share of this phase is going to be in the visioning, the outreach, and this economic and now market analysis. So I think 300.
I would hang.
Much more
I would
comfortable.
be more comfortable with 350. I just think it's going to go
Yeah,
a lot
I think it's
faster.
higher. Yeah, so I'll put 350.
Let's do that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I always have something that's bothering me.
Mhm.
And should I bring it up now? Or
No,
Yes.
Right ahead.
I've been thinking about what happens when you take down the prison. And is there an acoustical issue we need to be thinking about? And do we need to do some kind of acoustical study or develop some thinking around that? Because this property is going to be right off of Route 2. And we have on the other side, and we haven't talked to anyone from ORS yet about how we protect the quiet over at the Assabet River. And I just think people are going to be surprised at how loud it could be to have Route 2 sort of wash over this without thinking of some kind of acoustical component to the plan. And we didn't talk about it at all, and I didn't think about it till now. So I'm always short on this. So this is maybe something where it would run over.
I think,
I think it's a great point, Linda. I think that I would suggestion would be to identify that as a consideration in the planning process, because the reality is until we know what the different scenarios might look like and the massing of the associated buildings, to just do an acoustical study. I mean, I suppose you could do it as a baseline and say, imagine for a second that there were no buildings whatsoever there. What would that mean for sensitive places like the river or even further down the line, getting into West Concord. That's just, I guess that's how I would suggest we handle that.
Okay.
I think it's to be vetted out by this land use planner, but also the master planner with the developer, because they're not going to want to put buildings there like residential right on Route 2. They're going to do what they do at 128. They're going to do placemaking of buildings or walls that are acoustically protective of what's going on inside. Putting back walls and with landscaping and things like that. So it will come down to developers. They want to market this and have it sell. So acoustics are a big part of it.
Okay.
What's interesting about your concern, Linda, is that it's probably in its best moment right now with the mass of that wall and the other elements, in terms
Right.
of dampening it. There's nothing like mass to take out low frequency sounds, which is exactly what car traffic is. And
Yeah. That's a good point. So I think you've raised an excellent point. So we can say that we're going to ask the consultant to identify the noise impacts of Route 2 without the prison and the need for sound buffering for the project, to just take a look at that. We don't need particular studies. We just need, I think, to get things in terms of large larger scale, what's the scale of the noise going to be like without the walls? Can the development, as Scott's saying, buffer to a similar type of standard between? So we've already sort of come to realize just in these discussions, we're going to need to have the commercial closer to Route 2, and any residential sectors can be further back toward West Concord. So it's all good.
Thank you.
Great. No, thank you, Linda. It's good. All right. So we've got 350 proposed there. So what about FY26? What do we put in there? That's part of the question. Do we need another 100,000 for there? Do we have a sense of that yet? Do we want to put in a placeholder?
I think it's a great idea, Peter. And I would say at least 100,000 for that's what I was going to say.
It's gonna go on for, in our schedule, it was going on for what, 5 months, 4 months? It was going from July till
Through town meeting,
till town meeting, so.
Yeah.
probably 9 months.
I would put 250 in there, in my feeling.
Well, are we combining that with the zoning? We've got 100,000 for the zoning down below for FY26.
I was considering, yeah, combining the from July 1st on, whatever you need for,
So maybe another 150 under the planning marketing study up top.
yeah, and then another 100 for zoning or something. I don't know, something like so.
Well, we do have that 100 for zoning down there for FY26. So
We do?
yeah,
Where is it? Yeah. Okay.
so that would give
So-
250 to complete the rest of it. Go ahead.
Can I ask, I'm a little I'm a little concerned with the total amount. So the whole entire two years to update the comprehensive long-range plan was a little less than $250,000. So you have, and the
That was
economic
10
fees.
years ago.
What I understand that, but that was the whole entire town, 7 different elements. So
No,
I mean,
I hear you. You know, I think we're sort of living in this context of we got to spend the 750 by July 1st. So yeah, we're probably overestimating. Well overestimating. Let's just dial that back to maybe
so the
75.
100,000 for the zoning piece
Yeah.
includes the community engagement.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's leave 75 there just in case. I just don't want to miss anything, you know, and have Simon be out to get our scalps at the end of the day. So, yeah, if you know, it can post if needed.
Okay, so 150 and 75 doesn't add up to 350 though.
No, it's 100, it's 350 is this year. And then in 26, it's 75 plus 150 or 225.
Plus 100 for the zoning.
I'm sorry, 175, correct. So it's basically half as much as we're going to spend in this fiscal year 2025 for the
So don't you
zoning.
need to change the FY25 column?
No.
No, this is,
Keep it separate so Megan can see what the proposed changes are.
Yes, and that's not, and to me, that's a separate bucket of money, the
Okay.
75 and the 100. That
Yeah.
comes from to be determined,
Okay,
but I'm glad you clarified that.
okay, so the other things that we have control over is the land use subcommittee. Linda had a good suggestion about combining the short-term and the historical research. I would combine those two and leave it at 80,000. I still think there's going to be the ability to go to the Mass Cultural Council for some funds to do some of the short-term art and education projects.
So I'm gonna jump in here. Short-term community engagement, it has nothing to do with the historical research. I think if you want to pull them out, you can leave historical research and historic and historic storytelling as an item. The short-term community engagement piece, which the economic vitality manager was talking about, is something completely different. So, I mean, you could take historical research and historical storytelling at 75 and short-term community engagement at, 20, or one at 70 and one at 20.
All right, I'm happy to cut the short-term community engagement and storytelling down to 20 and do the historical research. I'm just pulling numbers out here, so I don't have a sense. I mean, I think this work that Ann McCarthy Forbes did for the Historic Commission is still, it's still relevant. I don't think there's going to need to be a lot of reinventing of things in terms of the structural and landscape analysis. So let's put in maybe 40,000 for that. There was some really excellent stuff that we did with Junction Village about the Great Encampment, which was on this site, which is pretty interesting in terms of storytelling and historical research. So
are you going to move storytelling from short-term community engagement into the historical research part?
No, I think historical research is, if it's done right, it's storytelling. So,
Okay. Well, I do know, I think Shannon is trying to set up a meeting with myself and DCAM to talk about their scope of work that they have to do for their historical piece.
right.
And then we'll have a better understanding to inform what additional work could be done and what that cost would be.
That's great. Okay, I don't have all screens up, so if you've got your hand up, just speak up, folks. Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, other items. So the Pail Factory bridge, is that the bridge that's going to go across the Assabet?
That's
No,
the
the
bridge
Pail,
it's Neshoba Brook. It's right before Kenny Dunn Square, if you're coming from the Rotary.
Okay, all right.
And that's not gonna fall in our purview. It's the
Okay.
town's.
Okay. And the Kenny Dunn Square reconfiguration, that's also outside of our purview?
Correct. I mean, clearly that intersection will be impacted by whatever happens at MCI, but it's not, it's that initiative, that analysis or exploration, as I understand it from talking to Mary, will be driven by the town. Elizabeth Allen and others probably.
Okay, and then zoning we discussed and we budgeted for July 1st on $100,000. Rotary analysis, so this was discussed. I think there's money that's been already set aside to hire. I think was it Stantec or VHB to work with the town.
Stantec.
Okay, and we're going to want to meet with that group at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Peter, just to keep everyone in the loop, I believe that the Legal and Governance Subcommittee has been pushing to try to get a FaceTime and seat at the table with DOT. So.
Okay. Yeah, and actually just for our group, and I'll repeat this again on Monday. So I had said I would try and set up a meeting of the Fitchburg Line Working Group. We're in the process of trying to schedule that now. We've got an invitation out to the head of DOT. who lives in one of Dan's houses out at Devon's. And we're going to invite communities from all along Route 2 and the Fitchburg line. And there's also going to be a discussion of the northern rail route, which was extending the Fitchburg line out to Williamstown. And they've just finished their report, so that's sort of a tractor. And we're going to ask people to be prepared to rally their legislators to fix the rotary. So if DOT ever comes up with a plan, we're going to have the whole legislative delegation from all the way out the end of Route 2 to Cambridge on board. That's the idea there. So it'll take them about 5 years to come up with the idea, take them about another 5 years to finish the designs. And, you know, when we're older and grayer, our grandchildren will live to see it. But
So can I comment on that, Peter?
yeah, please.
What I heard from Paul, I don't think I'm speaking out of school, is it moved from 10 years and beyond. This is relative to DOT into the 5 to 10 year column.
Yep. No, that's great. So yeah,
It's progress, right?
that's great progress. Okay, back to the budget. Other issues, other categories. Do anybody have any comments on that? Can we scroll back up to the top? Thank you. So we've got these expenditures for wastewater treatment and conceptual plan for the CPW. That sounds like that's coming out of the townhouse budget. The wastewater treatment stuff, I think there'll be more discussion of that on Monday. You know, if anybody wants to practice your questions, you're free to throw them out at this point. Okay, great. Any final thoughts on the budget proposal for Monday? And we're going to share with the full committee. So we're increasing the consultant economic market analysis to 350, putting 40,000 under historical research and 20,000 under the storytelling and community engagement. All right, the next piece that we wanted to discuss is preparing for the meeting with the consultants and locking down a date for a tour of the site with the Department of Corrections, and what type of presentation are we going to do, and what type of, you know, format, Q&A, and where will we hold it? Those types of issues. It may be worthwhile to try and do it at Harvey Wheeler because it's not that far from the site. You know, I'm open to suggestions, Elizabeth or Shannon, in terms of location.
I can tell you that holding a hybrid meeting at the Harvey Wheeler Community Center is very, very difficult.
Okay.
Yeah, it's we've tried to have Board of Appeals meetings there, and it does not work well.
Is that because of the use with the daycare stuff, or is that just a technically, digitally, or whatever? IT.
Yeah, technically it's challenging.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and it's a little difficult to get to and park at. Well, I mean, I guess it's got the parking out back, but can we, and I guess well, I guess I can ask Paul this or somebody at DOC, but is it possible we could do it on site? You know, grab a room, grab a cell?
That's where we met
That's-
Now,
before.
let's see if you can lock that down.
We met when we did the original tour, we met in the waiting room there.
Yeah, that was a good room, if you recall, Scott. That was big.
Yeah,
And it had like a little conference room off the side when you came in.
yeah.
How
So
many people are
I
you
don't know if that,
talking, though?
what?
How many people are you talking about?
It's a great question, Elizabeth. I have no idea.
You can limit it to people if you
No.
want, but I assume it's gonna be probably about 50 people.
That's what I would guess, but
Yeah.
the
If it's a,
wild.
if it's a public meeting, you can't limit it.
No, but it's gonna be, I go on these every week and for big products and it's usually around 50 people or less.
Yeah. So, question number one, have we got a date?
Not until we know when it's going to be released. That there is a calendar, remember, that just needs to be, Shannon updated it last time based on the best guess.
Who's-
I mean, that's going to change a little bit.
Who's consulting with procurement to move that calendar? As every day that goes by, they're having to push it out. So who's confirming those dates?
Is
I
it gonna
think
go
it's
out
Shannon,
Friday?
but I'm not sure. Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, I think I asked Neil for an update yesterday. I updated those dates by a week as we discussed at the last land use subcommittee meeting, and I think, right, depending on if that gets out this Friday, it's delayed another week, so the date should probably be updated another week.
So it's going out this week, Friday, hopefully.
I've not gotten a response, so I
It's just
That's the
getting,
last I heard. It's the best guess, but that's the last I heard.
and
And that may have been me wishful thinking too, but what I heard that it should be going out this week.
I'm sorry, I started to stir it up, but why is it a delay?
I can't answer that.
Because
I think that our procurement office is short-staffed at the moment, to be honest, and she's trying to get the review done as soon as she can. But she's just struggling a lot right now.
and this wasn't a priority, I mean, it's just surprising because now it just pushes things over to the holidays, over the Christmas holidays. It's not good. We lose time for the money. So anyways, whatever. It's not your issue. It's Shannon. It's frustrated.
Yeah. Okay, so we have had, Dan, I'm looking at you with this question. We've have had discussions with DOC, letting them know that that we would like to hold the meeting, have a tour of the site.
I have not had a direct contact with DOC. I have had conversations with ECAM, and they are aware that that this is coming up and that we want, and not that we want to use that conference waiting room, but that we have the site tour coming up, and they were looking for us to tell us when they were going to pin it down. I believe the way we left it on Friday was based on the assumption that it would go out this Friday, that we were sort of pushing everything up 2 weeks. So that was, and they said, and it was sort of a joke that came back and said, well, we'll tell them it's going to be this window, sort of a little spongy or whatever the word is, a little fluid.
Yeah, well, that sort of leads to my closing joke here. You know how they say when one door closes, another one opens? You know what that means? It means you're probably in a prison.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody's familiar with watching television, when they put a prisoner into an area, they close the door, make sure it's closed, and then they wait until it's closed before they open the other one. So I had to explain the joke, so it wasn't very good. Oh well, too bad.
Okay.
So
I got it.
Yeah. Anything up? else that we need to handle?
Well, I don't know that we're in a position to handle it today, but I do think that at the latest, and I think the timing will work, we need to have a conversation among this group of how are we as the land use group going to interface with this selection process, whether it's the participation at the tour or the interviews or whatever else. And I suspect we'll bump up against some procurement regulations and constrictions, but in the absence of that, I suspect we all have thoughts about that, or the way ideally how it might work out. I know Scott and I have sort of batted around a little bit in terms of especially the interview process, but and I'm pretty confident DCAM's going to be there, and so I just don't want us to have to scramble. So maybe if we can all begin to think about that.
Does procurement have guidelines for situations like this?
I don't know the answer to that. Shannon or Elizabeth?
One thing that we can confirm is you're not going to be able to have a committee quorum participating in the interviews, because then that would constitute an open meeting, which you obviously don't want these interviews to be. So I think it has to be 5 people or less.
Plus staff.
Plus staff, but obviously staff doesn't count, or DCAM, whoever won't count, but in terms of committee members, we have to make sure it's less than a quorum. So it has to be 5 people or less.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a stage, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe there's a stage at which after we get the proposals and everyone has a chance to read it, and we all start brainstorming or writing down what our questions would be, and then we put in 2 or 3 reps that would go in and actually ask the questions and participate. And I'm just spitballing here, but
Yeah, we should start thinking about the presentation. I'm assuming we can use the DCAM PowerPoint that gives the broad overview of what's going on that was used at the public hearing. And then just go through the RFP and then ask questions and then go take a tour.
yeah, I mean,
Or go take a tour and then go ask questions.
yeah, I mean, I could imagine a scenario where there would be benefit to having each one of the subcommittees have a representative there so that they
Yeah.
can, right? And I absolutely want Linda to be reading the RFP. Selfishly.
All right. So got some ideas. We can think on this for a while. Is there any other concrete action we need to take this afternoon? All right, I think I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry, Peter. I feel like Columbo. So do we want to mention, or people already know about this? Is it the housing consortium that came up on my reminder? I think that's this afternoon at 5.
That's this afternoon at 5.
So I don't know if people are interested. It's Concord Housing Roundtable, I think is the title for anyone that's interested.
Can we go, or will we be a quorum if we all show up?
No, I think it's by Zoom.
So that
Does that make a difference?
You're not deliberating. You can
Okay.
all not deliberating.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
All right, and Shannon, thank you for sending out the message from the Economic Vitality Committee. Everybody get a chance to look at it and digest it. It may come up as a discussion piece on Monday. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Thank you, Peter.